the SABC Plus app, as well as live streaming at Channel Africa 1 on YouTube.
And I'm Peter Ndoro. Yes, it's a Thursday, which is a Friday Eve for me. Always an exciting day of anticipation. And one of the big stories of the week, of course, has been the election process in Malawi. And we've been taking a closer look as vote counting has continued. And what do the numbers tell? Well, stay with us and we'll find out together. All of that and other stories coming up on the show after the news. Tula Mwebe.
SBC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. As Malawians await the results of the 16th of September elections, the Malawi Electoral Commission chairperson, Justice Manja, has called on all political candidates, their supporters and the public to remain calm and patient during the vote counting process. Speaking at the election tally centre in Lilongwe, Manja emphasised the importance of respecting the official procedures.
As the results continue to be compiled and verified, the Commission is calling upon all contestants, supporters and indeed the general public to remain patient and calm. The period of results processing is often highly sensitive, and the conduct of candidates plays a crucial role in maintaining peace and confidence in the process. Candidates are therefore being urged to respect the procedures, avoid making premature claims of victory, and to wait for the official announcement of results from the Commission.
Mali's military government has sought to calm anger over a blockade by Islamist militants on major highways where truck drivers have been facing ambushes and arson attacks. In a rare acknowledgement of the seriousness of the situation, Prime Minister Abdoulaye Maiga says measures are underway to improve security on the routes. The blockade, a potentially serious escalation of Mali's jihadist insurgency, is particularly affecting the supply of fuel, which could cripple the country. South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi says he was surprised when he saw a letter confirming the disbandment of the Provincial Political Killings Task Team signed off by Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. Mchunu is currently on leave of absence. Mkhwanazi says the letter was shown to him on the 2nd of January this year by a person who is not in the police service. The Political Killings Task Team, which was disbanded at the end of December last year, is at the centre of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry taking place in Pretoria. Mkhwanazi says Mchunu was not authorised to disband the team.
The investigations that some of them were in court and some of them were underway, and the clients, which is the community out there, the victims of crime, the families of the victims of crime that needed closure with regard to the work that the team was doing, were going to be affected by this letter. That's why I was surprised, because getting it from a private person who is not involved in police operations was a surprise.
As the global Sumud flotilla is headed for Gaza, the Foreign Affairs Minister of South Africa, Bangladesh, Brazil, Qatar, Spain and others have expressed their concern about its security. The convoy of vessels with activists from over 40 countries are going to Gaza to break Israel's blockade in the enclave. They have had some setbacks after a drone hit some boats. Kaelihle Kumalo has the details.
Some of the activists on board the vessels, including Osimandla Mandela, Swedish activist Greta Thunberg and others. They want to deliver humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip and raise awareness about the urgent humanitarian needs of the Palestinians. The foreign affairs ministers have called on everyone to refrain from any unlawful or violent act against the flotilla. They further say any violation of international law against the vessels in international waters will lead to accountability.
And finally, officials in Egypt are searching for an ancient rare gold bracelet reported missing from a museum in Cairo. The gold bracelet was once owned by a king in Egypt's 21st dynasty who ruled more than 3,000 years ago. The BBC's Richard Cargo has the story.
The bracelet, described as a golden band with special beads, is considered priceless. Curators say its disappearance is a major loss. A full inventory is now underway at the museum's restoration lab, but officials have not confirmed when the piece was last seen. Local media reported vanished during a recent inventory check. The case follows reports of thieves breaking into Paris's Natural History Museum, stealing gold samples worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Now, sports headline, Faith Cherotich claimed the 3,000-meter women's steeplechase gold in Tokyo. And Precious Mtembu declares that the baby Proteas are ready for the World Youth Cup. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Now, every morning after the 6 o'clock news, we bring you something that we call the Africa Roundup. And what it is an opportunity for us to catch you up with all the important news events that have taken place in the last 24 hours in a concise way to set you up for the news day ahead and make sure that you're not missing out on important stories. And we do this with our team of journalists, reporters and correspondents across the continent, putting all those stories into context. And begin with this story today. The homegrown National Peace Initiative for South Sudan is urging the public to join efforts in restoring peace and stability across the country. The initiative was launched in response to widespread concern over the current state of affairs in South Sudan. Lorna Merakaje is the head of the HGPISS Technical Secretariat, and she shares some details with us.
This is a people-driven initiative. We have basically reached a point of realization that neither can we have peace imported from outside, nor can we have peace given to us by the political actors. So for that matter, we have resolved to initiate a process that involves all citizens to participate, to contribute, but most importantly, to be led by faith-based leaders. We have so many things that obstruct peace in South Sudan. You can't imagine. It's to an extent that even one's ethnic identity becomes a problem. So the conversations start right from there to the services that are supposed to be provided by a state and it's not providing.
Kenyan President William Ruto and his deputy, Professor Kithure Kindiki, have urged coastal residents to dismiss opposition criticisms, describing them as misguided. Speaking during a development tour of Mombasa County, President Ruto assured locals that his record on development will secure him a second term in the 2027 general election.
We are grateful for helping Kenya to be a united country under God, one nation, one people. And our ethnicities, our religions should not defeat the project of creating a united Kenya. Na hiyo ndio inafanya hawa wananchi waseme two term. Ama namna gani? Muko kwa two term? Mombasa muko kwa two term?
The Constitutional Court in South Africa has reserved judgment in a case brought to it by communities along the Wild Coast in the Eastern Cape. This is against oil companies Shell and Impact Africa. The hearing, originally scheduled over 2 days, concluded in Johannesburg on Tuesday. Environmental groups and local communities argue that a ruling by the Supreme Court of Appeal, which allowed Shell to renew its exploration rights, was flawed and should be overturned. Nosipo Khadebe reports.
The Constitutional Court hearings focused on whether the appeals court decision was just and equitable. Central to the arguments was whether proper public participation should have taken place when the right was originally granted, and whether holding consultations during the renewal process would be enough to address that earlier gap. This is while Shell, Impact Africa and the Minister of Mineral Resources contend that, when read together with the SCA judgment, the law allows public participation during the renewal process. Counsel for Shell, Adrian Friedman, argued that it's enough to address the shortcomings of the original application and to remedy any breaches of constitutional rights and environmental laws. Activists marched outside the court yesterday, protesting over Shell's plans to drill for oil and gas off the coastline of the Wild Coast in the Eastern Cape, based on an exploration right received in 2014.
Communities in several villages along the South Africa-Zimbabwe border in the Limpopo province hope that increased resources at local police stations will help curb crime in the area. 3 border area stations have been reinforced with additional personnel and vehicles to strengthen law enforcement there. The region has faced challenges including car hijackings, illegal cigarette trade and livestock theft. Limpopo's provincial police spokesperson, Brigadier Hlulani Mashaba, has more.
As part of our crime combating efforts, as the police, we are capacitating our police station. This is in the form of resource allocation. This is in the form of vehicles that we give to stations that are struggling with crime elements, stations that you have just mentioned, especially those that are in the borderline stations, such as your Musodi, your Beit Bridge, your Musina. We are capacitating them. But we know that Musodi, they work very closely with other structures like your cross-border structures that are there, your rural safety structures that are there. So we have seen their work. That is highly commendable. Hence, we are putting in more resources for them to actually augment the work of the police in the fight against crime.
That's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Africa Roundup. We'll do this again tomorrow after the 6 a.m. news here on Rise and Shine. Stay with us.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana. África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel África. Adivinha só, a Channel África quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel África está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
This September, Channel Africa celebrates Heritage Month, a time to honor the stories, the rhythms, and the languages that make us who we are. Whether you're in Lagos or the shores of Zanzibar, to the mountains of Lesotho or the markets of Dakar, we are united in diversity.
Najivunia kuwa Mwafrika.
Kupondolera Afrika ndiye ndoagi.
Proudly African and fabulous.
Let us preserve our languages. Let's embrace our uniqueness. Let's embrace our cultures and celebrate the beauty of our continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. 9 to 12 midday, Central African Time. On the move with Palisa Tau and Benjamin Mushata.
Should influencers be expected to be impactful in society? If there is a social or societal conversation that goes up, should we be waiting eagerly to hear what the influencers have to say?
They are more than just entertainers. They are thought leaders to some certain degree. They influence culture, they influence people's thought processes, they set trends, they shape opinions of people. And the sad reality is, although a lot of them don't want to accept it, I think we're getting better with them realizing that they're embarking in that journey, and in that space comes with a certain level of responsibility.
I see it differently in that, professionals are already good at their job, but there is an optionality that they might have to use the position that they hold in society to be able to deliver a message. This year you made the example of actors and actresses. So the same could apply to a sportsman. Just because someone's good at soccer doesn't mean that they have to have an influence over society from a specific standpoint.
Keeping you on the know and on the move. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, vote counting is underway across Malawi after Tuesday's presidential and parliamentary elections drew millions to the polls. Early vote counts from North Malawi showed former President Peter Mutharika taking an early lead. However, projections indicate the election could head to a runoff, with no candidate expected to surpass the 50% threshold required for an outright win. So now Channel Africa's team has been covering the vote, as you know, and we've been speaking to various correspondents and reporters on this. And this morning we want to know what they've witnessed. We speak to Nixon Katembo, who was in Lolongwe, who is head of the Kiswahili desk at Channel Africa. Nixon, good morning. How are you?
Good morning to Asanda and good morning to the listeners.
All right, so give us a tally then in terms of how far it is as far as vote counting goes. Yes, where are we now?
So far, the tally is progressing well. The Electoral Commission is saying that several districts have completed the tally, and they are going to announce the results in the next 7 to 8 days based on the Malawian electoral law.
Let's talk about the political events in the days leading up to Election Day. What can you tell us as an overview?
An overview is about job creation, economic inflation control, fuel crisis that has burdened the country and which is threatening the economy of the country. And those are the issues that many of the citizens voiced, as well as the political campaign, trying to say that they are going to fix the economy. And I think the division within the political parties, especially the major candidates, contributed to the kind of situation, the results trickling in that we are witnessing, where an outright winner is not expected.
Talking of those candidates, let's talk about what they were promising the voters, these politicians. If we focus on the three, Lazarus Chakwera, Arthur Peter Mutharika, as well as Atupele Muluzi.
Well, both Peter Mutharika and Lazarus Chakwera have promised to fight inflation, fix the economy. Lazarus Chakwera is telling that he is the one initiating major infrastructure project around, for example, in Lilongwe, that he is going to continue. And interestingly, Asanda, during the campaign, he mentioned that he knows some of the people who are corrupt. If he elected, he will deal with the corruption. So showing that sort of a political naivety on his part. You cannot say that those who are corrupt and they do not act while you're in government. Now you wait to make it as a campaign issue. And I think those are issues that Malawi were uncomfortable with during these campaign elections.
Right. In a survey of Malawi voter opinion done by a platform for African Democrats, comparing President Lazarus Chakwera to his predecessor, Arthur Peter Mutharika. 3/4 of voters believe that Chakwera has performed worse. But does that mean necessarily that Mutharika is the actual preferred leader, or is just a comparison of two leaders who both have failed the country?
I think it's a comparison of both two leaders, a question of choosing between the better devil and the worst devil. And I think given the economic crisis that is in the country, the citizens saw it fit to rather choose whoever is going to be more moderate in terms of dealing with their issues.
What is the opinion on Atupele Muluzi of the United Democratic Front, or the UDF? His track record is that of being Minister of Economic Planning and Development. In June 2014, he was Minister of Natural Resources, Energy and Mining, and then was moved to Minister of Home Affairs in April of 2015.
Interestingly, he does not have really a political clout, and less is talked about him in the process of these elections. And I think it's a down to two-horse race between Peter Mutharika and current President Chakwera.
All right, Nixon, thank you so much. Safe travels. We'll see you when you come, when you are over this side.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Nixon Katembo, who was in Lilongwe, giving us an overview of the lead up to the voting of Malawians, as well as voting numbers, the tally there as far as counting is concerned. He is head of the Kiswahili desk at Channel Africa.
Heritage Month is a time to remember where we come from and celebrate where we are going. Channel Africa. Catch us on DSTV Channel 802. In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Tulisile Buddha, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Tulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Well, it's been nearly 2 days since Malawians went to the polls to decide their future and who they want to see in State House. And vote counting is continuing at the moment. And most people are predicting that this race is still too close to call, despite former President Peter Mutharika taking what looks like an early lead. Well, we've got correspondents and journalists on the ground in Malawi. We've just spoken to Nixon Katembo in Lilongwe. Let's go to Blantyre now, and there we'll find George Mahango. George, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. A very good morning.
So how is Blantyre this morning? What is the feeling about the elections as the counting continues?
The feeling of quite a number of people here in Blantyre is with the early lead by former President Peter Mutharika. Most of the people that I've spoken to since last night, they are happy. They're in jubilation. And they have given out their views to say it's a true reflection of what they want. And as per quite a number of press conferences being handled by the Malawi Congress Party of President Lazarus Chakwera, just like other opposition political parties, of course, they want results to be handled carefully. And of course, there are also talks about the polling stations, 21 polling stations, votes. In these polling centers, the votes have not yet been concluded. And I can confirm to say that the Malawi Electoral Commission has indicated that about 15,127 polling centers, have been completed, which means the votes have been counted so far, which means that 21 countrywide is the number that is now remaining for the Malawi Electoral Commission to handle. But otherwise, the Malawi Congress Party of President Lazarus Chakwera says that indeed people have to wait on the Malawi Electoral Commission to announce the results. That's that's what the mood is. Just like the Democratic Progressive Party (DPP) of former President Peter Mutharika, they're also vehemently waiting on the Malawi Electoral Commission to announce the results. But otherwise, constitutionally, in terms of the electoral laws here in Malawi, it's only after the tabulation of the manual counting and then those that were submitted biometrically. After all those kind of tabulations, that's when the Malawi Electoral Commission will be able to announce the result. But otherwise, the general feeling of people in Blantyre, more especially in the southern region, is just very good, peaceful, and no demonstrations whatsoever. Very peaceful it is.
So there's been speculation that this race is too close and it's unlikely that it's going to yield an outright winner straight away in terms of 50+1. Is that what it's looking like, or will someone edge it in your view?
Definitely, as it stands now, it's definitely going towards the second round, because we're talking about 50% +1. So previously it's different, because previously we used to go for first past the post. Whoever amasses more votes definitely is declared winner. But as it stands now, there is no outright candidate or presidential candidate who has amassed 50% +1. So definitely the second round is near approaching. That's what even political analysts, human rights commentators have talked about.
Joyce Banda was seen as a dark horse. How well or badly has she done?
Well, not to the satisfaction of her character, not to the satisfaction of her wishes, because she was a champion of gender or women activism. So, her points, more especially the political manifesto that she had, looked more about women and youths. So I think it hasn't worked to her wishes, just like maybe her supporters' wishes. So it's something that at the end of the day, she has to accept.
All right. And very briefly, when do we think we might get a result? Do we have a timeline? Has the Electoral Commission made any indications?
There is no indication as to when the results would be announced by the Malawi Electoral Commission, but the expectation within laws governing elections here in Malawi should be 21 days. That's about the presidential pause. But for maybe ward councillors, members of parliament, that should be expected even before next week. But for presidential pause, definitely it's going to be like 21 days. But otherwise, if everything goes as smoothly as Meg says, then not later than 21 days.
George Muhango, Zikomo Kwambiri. We'll leave it there for the time being.
Zikomo.
That's our correspondent in Blantyre, the former capital of Malawi. George Muhango speaking to us about those results, and it's looking like it'll be a second round of voting between Mutharika and Chakwera. We'll keep on top of that story for you. Right now, though, let's catch you up with the news headlines. Here's Jwalane Tulo Mwebe.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. SABC News. Headlines. the African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines as Malawians await the results of yesterday's elections. The Malawi Electoral Commission chairperson, Justice Annabel Mdalimanja, has called on all political candidates, their supporters and the public to remain calm and patient during the vote counting process. South Africa's Mkhonto weSizwe party will continue today with its bid to have 3 interrelated decisions taken by President Cyril Ramaphosa declared unlawful. And again, the South African government says the recent developments in the conflict between Israel and Hamas are further evidence of genocide directed at Palestinians. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of sports now. Getting our full bulletin for the day. Here is Fikile Lingwati with those details.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
In this hour, we kick off with football news. Virgil van Dijk scored a dramatic late winner to grab Liverpool a 3-2 Champions League victory over Atletico Madrid. Liverpool, with club record signing Alexander Isak on debut, raced into a 2-goal lead inside the first 6 minutes as Atletico struggled to get out of their own half on Merseyside. A Mohamed Salah free kick flew in off Andy Robertson for a fortuitous 4th-minute opener before the Egyptian forward collected Ryan Gravenberg's pass and slotted into the bottom corner. But Atletico eased themselves into the game and halved the deficit in first-half injury time. Atletico coach Simeone was shown a red card at the confrontation with Liverpool fan following Van Dijk's goal. On to football news. Some more. Winger Lamine Yamal is not a part of Barcelona squad for their Champions League match at Newcastle United. The 18-year-old missed his side's win against Valencia on Sunday with a groin issue after Barcelona manager Hansi Flick criticized the amount of time Yamal played for Spain during the international break. Yamal played for his country for 79 minutes of a 3-0 win in Bulgaria on the 4th of September and 73 minutes of a 6-0 victory in Turkey 3 days later. Barcelona beat Valencia 6-0 without him and have not selected the forward in the squad for the first game of this season's Champions League at St. James Park. On to athletics. Kenya's Faith Cherotich overhauled reigning champion Winfred Yavi on the last lap to win women's 3,000 meter steeplechase gold at the World Champions on Wednesday. The talented 21-year-old nailed a hurdle that Bahrain's Yavi stumbled over on the final run down the back straight and soared over the last water jump to finish in 8 minutes 51.59 seconds, the fastest ever time at the World Championships. Still on athletics, South Africa's 400 meters world record holder Wade van Niekerk has advanced to the men's 200 meters semi-finals at the World Athletic Championships in Tokyo. The 33-year-old, who sustained a career-threatening knee injury in 2017, finished second in his heat in a time of 20.19 seconds. It was slightly slower than his season's best of 20.17 seconds, but 11th fastest of all the qualifiers. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fide Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It's time now to take a first look at what's been happening in business news. And with that, we say good morning to Nosipo Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. In your business news this hour, African manufacturers are lobbying U.S. Congress to grant a last-ditch extension of 1 or 2 years to a duty-free trade program due to expire at the end of September. Now, this is according to a Kenyan factory owner involved in the campaign. U.S. President Donald Trump's aggression tariff policies have cast doubt on the prospects for renewal of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which is AGOA trade initiative. AGOA was passed in 2000 under former President Bill Clinton to provide duty-free access to the U.S. market for thousands of products. Total Energies has won 4 offshore exploration permits in Liberia. The company says the permits are part of its broader strategy to diversify its portfolio and increase its presence in Africa. The permits cover a total area of approximately 10,000 square kilometers located in the offshore waters of Liberia. Stakeholders in the beer and agriculture industries gathered in Daung in South Africa's Northwest Province on Wednesday to celebrate 130 years of South African brewery sub commitment to local farmers. The project was initiated in the early 90s within the Daung irrigation scheme with the aim of creating a sustainable income for local farmers. The company sources ingredients including barley, maize, hops and sorghum from the farm. Zole Galisa of SAB says it is important to recognize local farming excellence. Judgment has been reserved in the South African Constitutional Court case brought by communities along the World Coast against oil companies Shell and Impact Africa. The Apex Court was set to hear arguments over 2 days, but proceedings concluded in Johannesburg yesterday. Environmental organizations, along with the affected communities, argued that an order of the Supreme Court of Appeal allowing Shell to renew its exploration right was incorrect and should not stand. Head of programs at Natural Justice, Lucian Limacher, unpacks what each outcome could mean. And finally, Bank of America has raised its minimum hourly wage to $25 per hour across the United States, fulfilling its 2021 pledge to meet the threshold. The second largest U.S. bank has increased its minimum hourly pay by nearly 67% since 2018. The company was most recently paying a minimum wage of $24 per hour. Your financial indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 495. In Botswana is 13 pula 18. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 45. And in Zambia is 23 kwacha 51. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 ruble 30. Russia is 83 rubles 96. India is 88 rupees. China is 7 yuan 11. And in South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 34. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,662 and platinum at $1,375 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $67.83 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live. 5 days a week. G20 in Africa. Exclusive to Channel Africa.
Did you know, as far as the G20 fact is concerned, the G20 consists of two parallel tracks, which are the Sherpa and Finance tracks. The Sherpa track consists of working groups that are focused on socio-economic issues such as agriculture, anti-corruption, climate, digital economy, education, employment, energy, environment, health, tourism, trade and investment. The finance track, headed by finance ministers and the central bank governors, relates to fiscal and monetary policy issues such as the global economy, infrastructure, and financial regulation. That's our G20 fact for this morning.
G20 in Africa. Exclusive to Channel Africa. Championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability. The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Our fitness coach, her name is Yvonne Dimakazo Pasha. How to remain consistent with gyms, Dima, and I'm going to put you on the spot right now. As we are talking, I will send you my picture and I want you to tell me what you think I should work on. Because, you know, when I look at myself, Dima, I think I'm very handsome. I'm so good looking, like, oh my goodness. Like here at Channel Africa where I work, I think I'm one of the most good looking people ever. Like sometimes when I look at myself in the mirror, I never get used to how good I look. I'm just amazing.
You're okay with the way you're looking. You spoke of that. And now you want to put me on the spot.
Do I need gym?
Yeah. I mean, if you can just consider eating healthy, cutting down a few foodstuffs such as junk.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
The upcoming United Nations General Assembly in New York is a fundamental moment for heads of state and government to come together to find mechanisms of dialogue that allow for crises to be effectively resolved. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres was speaking exclusively to SABC News ahead of next week's high-level meetings that will focus on a multitude of issues, from marking the 80th anniversary of the organization to resolving conflicts, development issues, climate mitigation, and AI governance, amongst others. In what is often referred to as the World Cup of Diplomacy, Sherwin Bryce picks up this story.
As heads of state and government ready themselves for a week of high-stakes diplomacy, a message from their host. Listen to UN Chief Antonio Guterres.
This is a fundamental moment for them to come together, and to be able to find mechanisms of dialogue, ways to start processes, allowing for crises to be effectively solved. We need leadership from the top. And this is the best moment in the world where we can have all leaders together and we can, if they want, provide leadership from the top to address the horrible crisis we face in so many places of the world because of conflict, but also to address some of the crucial problems related to sustainable development, climate change, artificial intelligence, and others that will be in the center of the debates during this summit.
The SG for now refuses to use the term genocide to classify the catastrophe unfolding in Gaza, despite a growing consensus, including from the UN Independent Commission of Inquiry making that determination this week, rather seeking that classification from competent organs such as the International Court of Justice. But he did offer this.
What's happening in Gaza today is intolerable. Intolerable from the moral point of view, the political point of view, and the legal point of view. Gaza City is being destroyed building by building. And at the same time, 300,000 people already left, but left in dramatic circumstances through congested roads. Apparently, one new road is being opened today for a few days. higher level of death and destruction that I can remember in any moment of my public life. And this is absolutely intolerable. This is the moment for a permanent ceasefire, for the release of all hostages, and for unimpeded humanitarian access to Gaza.
A two-state solution conference is also planned on the margins of next week's UNGA, where a number of countries are expected to formally recognize the state of Palestine despite opposition from Israel and the United States. While we also press Guterres on the civil war in Sudan, which today represents the largest humanitarian emergency anywhere in the world.
Absolutely intolerable, and as you said, there is total impunity. And the impunity comes from the geopolitical divides, and the geopolitical divides paralyze the Security Council. And so all these actors that you see in Sudan, as in Libya or in the DRC or wherever, or they all feel that they can do whatever they want because nothing will happen to them. And this is something that needs to change. And one of the central aspects of this change is the reform of the Security Council.
He confirmed his attendance of the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg this November as the question of debt relief and reforming the global financial architecture to better support the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals remains a central theme.
There are a number of things that need immediate responses. Debt relief is one. The cost of capital, the reduction of the cost of capital, because African countries pay interest rates that are much higher than European countries, even European countries that have a worse economic situation from the point of view of the deficit than some African countries. And at the same time, the need to mobilize much more resources, namely in concessional funding, that is not available today to middle-income countries in distress, because they are still developing countries, they are still relatively poor, but because they are classified as middle-income countries, they do not receive any kind of concessional funding, and that is absurd. So there are a number of changes that need to be made beyond the reform of the structures, and I must say I fully support the initiatives of the South Africa presidency of G20 in this regard.
In a world dominated by geopolitical divides and turbulent waters, the question remains whether international cooperation and multilateralism can withstand these multiple stress tests. Next week's high-level meetings at the UN will offer some clues. I'm Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York.
We are all threads in the African tapestry. This Heritage Day, we honor every single one. Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Mozambique's opposition leader Venancio Mondlane has been charged with incitement to terrorism and disobedience. He faces a total of 5 charges. The charges relate to post-election violence that left hundreds of people dead. What punishment is he looking at?
The most severe charges are 2. One is incitement for terrorism, and also is being charged for mobilizing people for terrorism during the protests. These charges are really serious and severe. If he is condemned, is found guilty, he could serve 10 years plus years in jail, meaning that he would be banned from political participation, mainly for the 2028 and 2029 electoral cycle.
The director of CDD, the Center for Democracy and Development, Adriano Novunga.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
September is World EV Month, a time when the spotlight falls on how countries are embracing electric vehicles and cleaner mobility. Here in South Africa, these conversations go hand in hand with growing scrutiny of our rail infrastructure and the urgent need to modernize and integrate our transport systems. To explore how electrification and smart mobility solutions could help shape the future, we're joined by Veron Maharaj, who is Product Marketing Specialist at ABB, a global leader in electrification and e-mobility technologies. Veron, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Asanda.
Our pleasure. We're talking about World EV Month, but here in South Africa, the spotlight is also on the state of our rail infrastructure. From your perspective, how do these two conversations connect?
Well, from an infrastructure point of view, we currently have a fair amount of rail infrastructure. So there's actually two parts of it. There's the passenger rail segment and the freight rail. So we've seen underinvestment generally in both, let's say, sectors from a rail perspective, but there's definitely room for improvement in terms of getting passenger rail as one segment more viable and more accepted by general passengers. From a freight perspective, there are predominantly freight lines running between major, let's say, industries and moving commodities generally to different parts of the country. From an opportunity perspective, there is a fair amount of opportunity for South Africa specifically to get these sectors more efficient and more adopting to or accommodating to different industries in South Africa.
What would those opportunities for South Africa be?
So generally, the opportunities for South Africa would be from a, let's say, from an infrastructure point of view, more investment we put into rail infrastructure in general, the better we are in terms of performing from a global perspective. One of the most important points would be accessibility and affordability. When we improve infrastructure from a passenger perspective, we make rail more accessible to general public. That means people will adopt it in terms of day-to-day movement of people. On the freight side, greater investments means we can lower costs in terms of moving goods, predominantly heavy and large machinery and commodities to our end customers, which is generally overseas.
What would some of the pressing challenges be for South Africa and that the country needs to tackle right now?
So from a safety perspective, that's definitely one area of concern. On the passenger side, that's the one area. On the freight side is reliability of infrastructure, predominantly the coal and the iron ore lines. We need to put more effort and energy in terms of policy on the one hand and adoption of newer technologies to make systems more efficient and more reliable.
So ABB, we understand, has worked on projects around the world. Are there examples where rail electrification or modernization has really made a difference that South Africa could draw from?
From an ABB perspective, predominantly in Americas and Europe, Middle East, and Asia. So we've rolled out many projects and different types of projects, predominantly from a rail perspective, whether it be passenger rail or freight rail. We've developed different technologies from an ABB point of view, where we've got different solutions, either from a hardware point of view, from a software perspective, operations, maintenance. We've delivered many projects with different degrees of complexity to deliver different solutions to the different landscapes within each region around the world.
Typically, what type of time allocation is given to these types of projects? And can South Africa, if it decides to zoom into this and tackle this issue, achieve that resource-wise?
From a timing perspective, rail in general is fairly capital intensive. So from an infrastructure point of view, infrastructure projects take a fair amount of time. I mean, if Caltrain is a typical example. It takes a few years. Proper planning and investigations and engaging with different stakeholders is important to get us to deliver a project within shorter timeframes and within budget. So there are a lot of different aspects that need to be taken into account to deliver successful rail projects.
A lot of people think of electric cars and rail as separate issues, but increasingly they're being linked. So how do EV charging and integrated transport systems fit together in building smarter, future-ready cities?
From a general perspective, where we look at, let's say, economies, so generally cities and, let's say, rural cities and economies, we are moving more to a space where cities are becoming more electrified, there's more urbanization occurring. With this change in the behavior and the influx of people to major cities, we need to actually electrify our cities, make them more resilient, smart, and sustainable. From an EV perspective and a rail perspective, both these industries or sectors require energy, they require connectivity, devices and systems need to be more digitally enabled. So these two sectors are kind of seen to be different, but they actually rely on the same infrastructure support mechanisms to make them run efficiently and effectively. So they are basically relying on the same processes and systems that one would develop, whether they be for rail or for electric vehicle charging.
If we look at 5 or 10 years down the line, what do you think South Africans could expect in terms of cleaner and smarter transport? Are we even close to real change?
From a passenger vehicle perspective, we've seen that more and more people are making the change to adopt to electric vehicles. As we see more progress in terms of adopting the technology, we're going to find more investment and infrastructure built to make, let's say, the electrification of the processes and the systems that actually support electric vehicles more effective. So we're going to see a rapid adoption of technology, and as people adopt more technology, we're going to have an acceleration of technology adoption, making cities more smarter and more sustainable.
Ron, we're going to leave it there for today. Thanks again for making time to chat to us.
Thank you very much, Asanda.
Veron Maharaj is Product Marketing Specialist at ABB, sharing insights on how electrification and innovative transport solutions could shape the future of South Africa's rail sector and cities.
Africa's very own think tank. This is Channel Africa Online. www.channelafrica.co.za. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The United States was very vocal at the beginning of South Africa's G20 presidency, and this is largely due to strained relations with South Africa at the time, that they were not really keen on participating. Where do they stand right now?
The US is planning to take over the presidency of the G20 next year, and our understanding from them is that they intend to continue to do so, and therefore it is quite difficult then to be in a situation where you are not attending deputies' meetings or discussions during our presidency and then to take over the presidency next year. From a finance track perspective, there has been engagement. We've been working on a communique last week and this week here in Zimbabwe. What's important about that is that it's a consensus document. And so all the members in the room have to agree to the language that is used there. And our US colleagues have been part of those discussions and negotiations.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
7 o'clock Central African time it is. We now enter the second hour of Rise and Shine. This is Channel Africa. Good morning. My name is Asanda Beda.
A very good morning to you indeed. I'm Peter Ndoro, and we continue unpacking what's been happening across the continent and some of the big issues certainly that we're focused on. Coming up in this half hour, we'll be talking to the International Committee for the Red Cross, and they're talking about a very concerning situation in Sudan. Despite all of the other issues that it's facing, the country is also now grappling with one of the worst cholera outbreaks that it's faced in decades. Apparently about 100,000 people have been affected, and with a healthcare system that's pretty much decimated by 2 years of civil war, it could not have come at a worse time. So we'll be talking to the ICRC about the situation in the country, just to see what they're being able to do to try and help the desperate citizens in the country. So war has caused the biggest displacement at the moment across the globe. We're seeing all kinds of conflict atrocities in the country. And now on top of that, the Sudanese people are struggling with this outbreak of cholera. 100,000 people. And we'll be unpacking that story for you in the next 30 minutes.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Bina l'Export depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Good morning. Police in Togo have arrested the former Defence Minister Marguerite Gnade. Reports say she's accused of plotting against the state. The former minister is due to appear in court in the coming days. Gnade is the sister-in-law of President Fauré Sigbe. She was married to his late brother and is the first woman to be Defence Minister. As Malawians await the results of Tuesday's election, the Malawi Electoral Commission chairperson, Justice Annabel Mdalimanja, has called on all political candidates, their supporters, and the public to remain calm and patient during the vote counting process. Speaking at the election tally centre in Lilongwe, Mdalimanja emphasised the importance of respecting official procedures. South Africa's Mkhonto weSizwe party will continue today with its bid to have 3 interrelated decisions taken by South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa declared unlawful. In response to allegations made by Lieutenant General Ndlandla Mkhwanazi, Ramaphosa placed Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on special leave, appointed Professor Firoz Kachalia to act in his position, and established the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The MK party has taken its case to the Gauteng High Court after its application for exclusive jurisdiction and direct access to the Constitutional Court failed in July. South Africa's government says the recent developments in the conflict between Israel and Hamas are further evidence of genocide directed at Palestinians. Israel has denied this, but its forces have continued their ground operations to capture Gaza's main urban centre. South Africa's International Relations Deputy Minister Alvin Boertes says the current developments undermine the measures of the International Court of Justice in the case that South Africa brought against Israel. He was speaking during a question and answer session in Parliament yesterday. Meanwhile, Israel also pushed into a densely populated area of Gaza City. This as they continue their ground operations to capture Gaza's main urban centre. There are thick clouds of smoke as Israeli forces fire artillery shells and smoke bombs. Thousands of people have fled. However, the others say they cannot leave. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Chulani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Now, sports headline. 3 Boks have been omitted from Rassi Erasmus' squad to take on Los Pumas. And Soweto Marathon will go ahead as scheduled for the 29th of November. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Start your day informed, inspired, and entertained. Asanda and Peter bring you Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time.
As we've been hearing in the news a short while ago, the Malawi Electoral Commission's MEC chairperson, Justice Annabel Mtalimanja, has issued a strong reminder to stakeholders and the public over misinformation as vote counting continues following the September 16 polls. Addressing the media from the National Tally Centre in Lilongwe, the capital of Malawi, on Wednesday evening, Mtalimanja urged caution and discipline in the dissemination of election-related data, warning against premature or inaccurate projections. Channel Africa reporter Michael Mbewe picks up the story for us.
The announcement came in response to claims of victory by contesting parties based on unverified information, despite the Malawi Electoral Commission having the exclusive authority to officially declare election results. Speaking to the media on Wednesday evening, MEC chairperson Justice Annabel Mtalimanja reiterated the Commission's call for discipline and precision from all stakeholders, stressing that elections are a serious affair and urging everyone to refrain from releasing crude or unrefined calculations to the public.
Ladies and gentlemen, whilst various stakeholders are free to conduct their own parallel tallying, the Commission continues to urge for discipline and meticulousness in their work. Elections are serious business and stakeholders should refrain from throwing into the public domain crude and rudimentary calculations. The public is also urged to consider everything shared as unofficial until the final results are released and declared by the Commission. As a reminder, the mandate to declare a winner in an election rests with the Commission.
She outlined the legal criteria and deadlines for declaring results.
For the parliamentary and local government election, the winners are determined using the first past the post system. That is, whoever gets the greatest number of votes wins the election. However, for the presidential election, it is a different process. The law provides that the winner should get more than 50% of the valid votes that have been cast. On this, we need to be cautious on how the 50% is being calculated. Some tend to use the total number of registered voters, and others focus on the total votes cast. However, we wish to emphasize that it is the total valid cast figure that is used, not total votes cast, but total valid votes.
Furthermore, Mtalimanja highlighted timelines for the Commission to legally declare the presidential, parliamentary and local government's results.
In terms of the period for declaration of winners, in accordance with Section 99 of the Presidential, Parliamentary and Local Government Elections Act, the Commission shall announce the results of the presidential election within 8 days, for the parliamentary election within 14 days, and for the local government election within 21 days from the closure of polling.
Tendai Mpanje, Director of the African Center for Governance Election Observer Mission, confirmed that their mission has been concluded but remains vigilant on the post-election outcomes.
Today, the election observation missions have concluded the initial process of observation. So we are basically now monitoring the post-election day processes, which is the post-election phase. So there was a consensus that the elections went well, generally in a calm political environment, with a very few incidents that were reported. Some incidents that were reported, they were actually disinformation.
He raised alarm over few constituencies where tensions are emerging among losing candidates while results are being eagerly awaited. He appreciated the calmness displayed by Malawians this far.
We are now waiting for the announcement of results, or rather, results will be coming to the tallying center. So we are monitoring that process closely, and then waiting also for the results announcement. but we remain also concerned because in selected few constituencies there are tensions arising from candidates that are losing, and but largely the country is calm and wait patiently to hear the outcome of the election result.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News in Malawi's capital, Lilongwe.
The Zimbabwean government has approved the privatization of electricity production and sale to curb shortages and blackouts. This was announced Tuesday evening in a post-cabinet briefing in the capital amidst an outcry over power shortages, a year after completion of construction of their Muhange thermal stations. While the private sector in Zimbabwe was allowed to produce off-grid electricity some time ago, they were not allowed to sell to individuals, but only to government, who would later give them tax breaks. More from John Kasim, our correspondent based in Harare, Zimbabwe.
The Zimbabwean government has announced that private electricity producers can now do so to help ease the power shortage that has affected the country. The shortage persists despite the recent upgrading of the Hwange thermal power station by the Chinese. While speaking during the post-cabinet media briefing on Tuesday night, Minister of Media and Information Dr. Jen Van Muswere said private players are welcome. According to Muswere, the Zimbabwe Electricity Transmission and Distribution Company will partner with banking institutions for the electrification of communities. The banks would then recoup their costs through ZETDC's billing system. Under the advanced net metering strategy, the private sector will provide electricity to off-grid suburbs utilizing solar, with a backbone of infrastructure expansion component that will ensure connection to the national grid in the long term. The model will facilitate expansion of electricity access to underserved areas and contribute to the goal of universal electricity access by 2030. Here is what Minister Muswere said on Tuesday night.
The electricity sector requires significant investments for power grid upgrades, expansion and modernization, and the financing had been done mainly by the government of Zimbabwe. As such, the opening up of the electricity supply industry to the private sector by the need for huge investment, as well as improved efficiency and the integration of renewable energy sources. The private sector involvement will improve services, reduce costs to government, and assist in the integration of renewable energy sources. The participation will also facilitate rapid infrastructure development, improve revenue collection, and enhance operational efficiency.
A few years ago, the Zimbabwean government approved the production of electricity through solar by private players. While they were not allowed to sell to individuals, they were asked to offset their excess power to the national grid. Payment was promised to be done by the ZETDC through various means. This led to private players to take a backseat, as that model was not seen as viable then. However, the consistent power cuts have caused the cabinet to make a U-turn and allow private players to get involved. Meanwhile, the announcement by Muswere also stipulates that investors coming from abroad can also take part, provided they are registered in the country. Owing to climate change, Zimbabwe has not been able to produce enough power at Lake Kariba, thereby putting the thermal power stations under pressure. Zimbabwe requires more than 2,000 megawatts of power every day, yet is only producing less than 1,000 megawatts.
Following approval by Cabinet for the active participation of the private sector, progress is expected to gather pace given the existence of enabling laws and regulations. In this regard, the Electricity Act allows for the licensing of secondary electricity distributors. The Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority Act empowers ZERA to license secondary distributors and retailers, while the Zimbabwe Investment and Development Agency Act facilitates investor participation under terms that favor national interest.
John Kasim in Harare, Zimbabwe for Channel Africa News.
Heritage Month is a time to remember where we come from and celebrate where we are going. Channel Africa. Catch us on DSTV channel 802. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Sudan is currently grappling with its worst cholera outbreak in years. More than 100,000 suspected cases and over 2,500 deaths have already been recorded, as 2 years of conflict have left much of the country without functioning health facilities, clean water or essential services. The International Committee of the Red Cross is working alongside local partners to try and stem the spread of the disease and support vulnerable communities. Well, joining us now is Mateo Jaramillo Ortega, who's the regional spokesperson for Africa at the ICRC, to give us an update on the situation on the ground and the humanitarian response. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Perhaps you can start by giving us a picture of how widespread and severe this current outbreak is and which regions are most affected.
You were just mentioning the figure that we have are according to Sudan's Ministry of Health. We're talking about sadly more than 2,500 deaths and over 100,000 suspected cases of cholera in Sudan. This is in the 18 out of 18 states of Sudan. This is the worst cholera outbreak we have seen in years, and maybe the most important message today is that we need to urgently rebuild the infrastructure in Sudan, because it's one of the key factors, let's say, that has been spreading cholera in the country.
And talking about infrastructure, we believe that about 80% of the health facilities in Sudan are not functioning. And I guess this begs the question, how are the remaining hospitals and treatment centers coping with such overwhelming numbers of patients?
Well, yesterday we released some footage also about the work that we have been doing. It is true that there is an estimate between 70 and 80% of health facilities that have ceased to function in the country since the beginning of the war over 2 years ago. But this 20% effect has a lot of pressure because there is no remand system. And we have been supporting some of these health facilities with the most basic elements. Either it's going to be anesthesia supplies or blood transfusion that they need, support to the medical personnel. Yesterday we were talking about the one specific hospital that we support in Al Jazeera, and the hospital is there. The hospital is functioning. But when we talk with the responsible, when we talk with the authorities, when we talk with the people that we're working with, they're saying that the system is into a lot of pressure and still able to cope with the cholera outbreak, but very at the limit.
What have you been able to do in terms of helping treat patients on the ground and to stem the spread of this outbreak?
Well, the International Committee of the Red Cross has been able to support directly these health centers, some of these rapid response teams that we have on the ground. And since the beginning of the year, we have been able to treat nearly 18,000 patients. This is in Khartoum, in Gedafer, in North Darfur, in East Darfur, and in Central. And this is, I'm mentioning also these places because those places are ones that are impacted by cholera and malnutrition, where it's the most severe malnutrition there. What type of work do we do? We assist with drinking water, with hygiene kits, with prevention campaigns, with the communities, and of course, with all the support to the health center that I was mentioning before.
I guess the ongoing conflict in Sudan between these military operations has severely impacted the ability for health workers and humanitarian teams to respond effectively to this outbreak. Is that what's playing out?
Yes. Sadly, we can say that nowadays Sudan is the worst humanitarian crisis you were mentioning before, but since April 2023, nearly 12 million people have been forced to abandon their homes within or outside Sudan. We're talking that more than 3 million have become refugees in the neighboring countries. Today, Sudan holds the largest population for internally displaced person ever recorded. And in this scenario, we're trying to work as humanitarian actors. I can put you one example, for instance, in Al Fasher, in North Darfur, humanitarian actors need access. We do have some presence, for instance, in one of the hospitals. We have the couple of days ago, we were discussing with one of the surgeons that we have in the Al Fasher South hospital, and the situation is extremely dire. The hospital has been affected by the siege. There are no medications. There is few antibiotics. The surgical equipments or anesthesics, for instance, they're in very low quantities. The situation is indeed very critical, and for humanitarian workers, even for those organizations such as the International Committee of the Red Cross that are present, we have a lot of limitations to work.
I'm guessing that the rainy season will probably make things even worse when it comes to things like cholera. How are you and your partners preparing for this added challenge?
Cholera, as you may know, it's an acute diarrhea, a disease that is easily spread when there is contaminated food and water. And rainy seasons increase by far the risk of these new cases. We're requiring rapid action. We're coordinating with our main partner in the country, that is the Sudanese Red Crescent, same as the health authorities, in order to respond. How are we responding? I was mentioning before, but first to providing clean water, to providing food, by providing hygiene kits, and at the end also by providing prevention campaigns, because there is a lot of education that we do also in coordination, as I was mentioning before, with Sudanese Red Crescent and health authorities.
Are you starting to see a connection between the outbreak and rising malnutrition levels, and how's that affecting the humanitarian response?
We cannot say for sure there is a correlation, but it's true that there is a factor. There are targeting, the parties to the conflict are targeting critical infrastructure, those sources of water, those sources of electricity. People have been forced to be in this place. In this scenario, we're seeing this malnutrition, severe cases of malnutrition, and of course, there should be a correlation with the cholera outbreak. What we're seeing is that sadly, Sudan is becoming a perfect scenario for the spread of cholera, because you have the lack of clean water, you have the lack of food, lack of electricity, and people who have been forced to displace in a system, mentioning again, that is already very affected by the conflict, with over almost or an estimate of 80% of health facilities that has ceased to function.
How are the local health authority, whatever it is at the moment, given the war situation, coping with the current outbreak? I'm wondering if it's heavily dependent on organizations such as yours and other local partners.
Yes, even when we discuss with the partners that we have, with the doctors that are in the hospital, with the nurses, with the medical personnel, but also with, for instance, we have the testimony of the Deputy Director of Health Emergencies and Epidemic Control in Gadefra State. He was saying, and I can quote him, that the number of people with diarrhea has an impact on the center's staff in terms of pressure, and in the emergency department, working as hard as possible. There is a dependence, of course, but at the same time, we try to work as possible, wherever is possible, with the health authorities in order to provide them with the tools so they are going to be able to respond to the needs of the population.
Are you starting to see signs of stemming the spread, or is it still growing?
It is difficult to predict. We saw the beginning of the year, and there was a huge wave. So the cases that have increased, then it lows down a little bit. But now we're seeing more, and our messages, as you were mentioning before, is because this rainy season start in the country, and the risk of spreading cholera is higher. The risk is going to be way higher. So sadly, we're expecting to have it, because Sudan is not the only country in the region. There are several countries that have been affected. The issue and our focus in Sudan, for instance, is once again the destruction of critical infrastructure, water, electricity, and health.
Tell me a little bit about your safety as healthcare providers and health assistants. Are you safe in doing what you're doing?
In general, the International Committee of the Red Cross work with limited resources in very complex contexts. We're present in Ukraine, we're present in Russia, we have presence in Gaza, we have presence in Sudan. The way we work is through the dialogue that we have with all parties to the conflict, with the authorities that are in place, and of course with the population. This dialogue allows us to build trust with them and to be able to work. In all this scenario, we are present. We still have the physical presence, permanent presence in several areas of the country. We don't have physical or permanent presence, let's say, in some parties, in some areas of the country. Khartoum, for instance, right now we don't have permanent presence, but we constantly are going with our teams. Our security is always depending on us. It's in the trust that we can build and the assessment of security that we can have with the teams on the ground. And it is a complicated moment also for humanitarian assistance. Last month, we were talking in this same space about the World Humanitarian Day, about the several cases. Sadly, we have seen from the movement of the Red Cross and Red Crescent colleagues that have been killed while doing their humanitarian labor actions. And this has been sadly also in Sudan, but in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Gaza, in Ukraine. So situation in general is complicated. In Sudan, we're being able to work.
Hello, are you still there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay. Perhaps very quickly, as a final thought, what message would you like to send to the international community about the situation in Sudan and the need to protect civilians and ensure access to clean water and healthcare?
Look, unless there is a sustained humanitarian effort that can address these challenges in Sudan conflict, we have seen already a fragile region, cascading of effects in security, in the economy, in social tensions. So there should be a political willingness, and there should be a possibility for humanitarian workers to be able to provide the assistance that is very much needed. But our main goal to all parties to the conflict, for the respect of civilians, not only in Sudan, but in the whole region, because this conflict has a spillover with the neighboring countries, and the protection of the civilians is our main concern today.
Mateo, thank you very, very much indeed for your time, and we wish you the best in terms of the important work that you're doing in the region.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. That was Mateo Jaramillo Ortega, who's the regional spokesperson for Africa at the International Red Cross, International Committee for the Red Cross, speaking to us about the current cholera crisis in Sudan. It's 7:30. It's time for your news headlines. Here's Joalani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines. Police in Togo have arrested the former Defense Minister Marguerite Gnade. Reports say she's accused of plotting against the state. As Malawians await the results of Tuesday's election, the Malawi Electoral Commission chairperson, Justice Annabel Mdalimanja, has called on all political candidates, their supporters and the public to remain calm and patient during the vote counting process. And finally, Israeli forces have pushed into a densely populated area of Gaza City. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, let's focus on some sport now as we say good morning to Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Let's start off with the athletics. Athletes and road running enthusiasts have been assured that the annual Soweto Marathon will take place this year. The 30th edition of the event will now be on the 29th of November, starting from Nazareth, crisscrossing the Soweto Township and finishing at the FNB Stadium. The annual event, popularly known as the People's Race, has experienced a number of challenges in recent times, from fighting for recognition of the rightful ownership of the race to lack of sponsorship. The event that usually takes place on the first weekend of November now has a new date owing to the other major gatherings in Gauteng. The race director, Danny Bloomberg, says moving the event to the 29th of November was due to logistical issues.
So we were all systems go for the 30th, and there is one last shift that I need to mention to everyone. That date was brought to our attention that it clashes with National Prayer Day, which happens at the Soccer City precinct. So our event cannot coexist on the same day for obvious reasons on the 30th. So we've decided to shift it to Saturday, the 29th of November.
The existence of the Soweto Marathon also helps in enhancing the economy in the township. African Bank came on board in 2023 and is still committed to be part of the race for the benefit of the people of Soweto and those who are invested in road running.
This is a race about the people, but it's also a race about the economy of Soweto. That's so important. The township economy. We want money coming from outside of Soweto into Soweto. And that's what over 30,000 people who decide to run the race do for Soweto.
Kenya's Faith Cherotich overhauled the reigning champion Winfred Yavi on the last lap to win women's 3,000-meter steeplechase gold at the World Championship. The talented 21-year-old nailed a hurdle that Bahrain's Yavi stumbled over on the final run down to the back straight and soared over the last water jump to finish in 8 minutes, 51.59 seconds, the fastest ever time at the World Championship. Kenyan-born Olympic champion Yavi took silver in 8 minutes, 56.46 seconds, while bronze went to Ethiopia's Sembo Almayeu in a personal best time. Uganda's Peruth Chemutai, who won Olympic gold at the National Stadium in 2021 and silver in Paris, failed to finish after a fall at a hurdle towards the end of the race. And finally, football news. Virgil van Dijk scored a dramatic late winner to grab Liverpool a 3-2 Champions League victory over Atletico Madrid. Liverpool, with club record signing Alexander Isak on debut, raced into a 2-goal lead inside the first 6 minutes as Atletico struggled to get out of their own half on Merseyside. A Mohamed Salah free kick flew in off Andy Robertson for a fortuitous 4th-minute opener before the Egyptian Ryan Grabenberch pass and slotted into the bottom corner. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Let's now check in with the world of business as we say good morning to Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. In your business news, the SAWA African manufacturers are lobbying U.S. Congress to grant a last-ditch extension of 1 or 2 years to a duty-free trade program due to expire at the end of September. Now, this is according to a Kenyan factory owner involved in the campaign. U.S. President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff policies have cast doubt on the prospect for renewal of the African Growth and Opportunities Act, AGOA, trade initiative. AGOA was passed in 2000 under former President Bill Clinton to provide duty-free access to the U.S. market for thousands of products. Total Energies has won 4 offshore exploration permits in Liberia. The company says the permits are part of its broader strategy to diversify its portfolio and increase its presence in Africa. Now, the permits cover a total area of approximately 10,000 square kilometers located in the offshore waters of Liberia. Stakeholders in the beer and agriculture industries gathered in Daung in South Africa's Northwest Province on Wednesday to celebrate 130 years of South African Brewery Sub commitment to local farmers. The project was initiated in the early 90s with the Daung irrigation scheme with the aim of creating a sustainable income for local farmers. The company sources ingredients including barley, maize, hops, and sorghum from the farms. Zoleka Lisa of SAB says it is important to recognize local farming excellence.
SAB is here today to really shine the spotlight of the community of Daung. As you can see behind me, there are lush fields filled with barley. Our beer products start their journey on a farm, and we really want to recognize, reward, and thank the farmers for their farming excellence. When we say cheers to farmers, we talk about what they do in driving farming excellence, creating jobs, and ensuring that the beers always have high quality natural ingredients.
Judgment has been reserved in the South African Constitutional Court case brought by communities along the World Coast against oil companies Shell and Impact Africa. The Apex Court was set to hear arguments over 2 days, but proceedings concluded in Johannesburg yesterday. Environmental organizations, along with the affected communities, argued that an order of the Supreme Court of Appeal allowing Shell to renew its exploration right was incorrect and should not stand. Head of programs at Natural Justice, Lucien Limake, unpacks what each outcome could mean.
If Shell is allowed to move ahead with its operations and undertake seismic surveys, of course that will have an impact on the community who live along the Wild Coast and have an impact on the marine life. Similarly, though, if it happens the other way, then we would hope that the entire process is set aside, which is what we had requested at the High Court and which was given, as our advocate stated very clearly.
And finally, Bank of America has raised its minimum hourly wage to $25 per hour across the United States, fulfilling its 2021 pledge to meet the threshold. The second largest U.S. bank has increased its minimum hourly pay by nearly 67% since 2018. Now, the company was most recently paying a minimum wage of $24 per hour. Your financial indicators: one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira, 495, and Botswana is 13 pula 18. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 45, and in Zambia it's 23 kwacha 51. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rupee 30. Russia is 83 rubles 96. India it's 88 rupees. China at 7 yuan 11, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 34. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,662 and platinum at $1,375 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $67.83 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nusipho Suma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. AUSISA, the Association of Water and Sanitation Institution of South Africa, is a platform uniting Africa's water professionals. This November, Africa leads the conversation on water and sanitation. Join global and African leaders at the AUSISA Africa and Global South Dialogue 2025 from the 9th till the 12th of November at the Emperor's Palace, Johannesburg. From policy innovation, this is where action meets collaboration for a water-secure future. Register today at ausisa-watersan-dialogue.org or follow at AUSISA on social media. AUSISA, working together for sustainable water and sanitation security in Africa. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
A United Nations Commission of Inquiry has concluded that Israel committed genocide in Gaza, accusing top officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, of inciting such acts. At the same time, delegates at the third annual Activist Symposium in Johannesburg, South Africa, argue that trade restrictions, sanctions, and divestment campaigns remain powerful tools to pressure governments accused of atrocity crimes. The gathering, held under the theme Navigating Activism in an Anti-Human Rights Era, brings together voices from across the globe. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samusa has more.
United Nations inquiry finds top Israeli officials incited genocide in Gaza. Israel accuses the commission of having a political agenda against Israel and diverging from its mandate and declining to cooperate with it. But what does this finding really mean for global human rights advocacy? Shanila Mohammed is the Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa.
The Commission of Inquiry joins a growing number of international human rights bodies and experts in concluding that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. There is no more time for excuses. As the evidence of Israel's genocide continues to mount, the international community cannot claim they did not know. This report must compel states to take immediate action and fulfill their legal and moral obligation to halt Israel's genocide. The international community, especially those states with influence on Israel, must exert all possible diplomatic, economic, and political pressure to ensure an immediate and lasting ceasefire and unhindered humanitarian access to Gaza.
At the third annual Activist Symposium, I spoke with social worker Nigel Bracken. Here's his perspective.
This is just another judgment that says Israel is committing genocide. We've known since the ICJ first ruled just after October the 7th, I think it was in February 2024, when the ICJ first ruled that it's plausible that Israel's committing genocide and ordered the international community to take measures to prevent the ongoing commitment of this genocide, to ensure that aid is getting in.
Bracken says international trade or sanctions campaigns are effective tools to pressure governments accused of atrocity crimes.
We still also, we're here in Pretoria now, just outside Pretoria. There's a lot of water companies that are providing technical expertise to the municipality of Tshwane. For example, the Roodeplaat Dam. So we need to be taking it seriously. We need to be boycotting, we need to be disinvesting, and we need to be making sure that Israel is sanctioned. There's also talk internationally of a global peacekeeping force going in. We've also... we know that the Global Samud Flotilla is currently on its way to Israel. And on board that is the grandson of Nelson Mandela, Mandla Mandela, and that's incredibly significant. There's still some South Africans in Tunisia at the moment, and they're looking at also getting on boats to head towards there.
He adds that African businesses should position themselves in such global debates.
We're from South Africa, and we know what sanctions did to us. There were massive global boycotts, and we've got a global boycott, divestment, and sanction campaign. And I'd encourage people to go to the BDS website. There's a targeted campaign that is being run. Products like Coca-Cola, we need to be boycotting. We need to be boycotting Pepsi, McDonald's, Starbucks. But at a trade level, there is this complicity that we as South Africans continue to have, which is where we are sending coal to Israel. Additionally, we still haven't closed the embassy, and we know that Parliament has voted to close the embassy, and that is absolutely insane. So when you go to the Israeli embassy, there's still the flags flying. Of course, the ambassador is no longer here, but the embassy is still open, which is problematic, and that needs to shut.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samos in Johannesburg.
Still in South Africa, the country's Heart Association says that taxi drivers are not just moving people, they're also moving the economy, and without them, South Africa will grind to a halt. The organisation hosted a groundbreaking community heart screening event as part of its Check My Beat Heart Health Tracks campaign. And this was at the a major taxi rank in Soweto. Nhlanhla Mahlangu reports.
Every day, more than 15 million South Africans rely on taxis to get to work, school, and essential services. The industry is the backbone of national transport and pumps billions into the economy. But there's a hidden crisis. Taxi drivers who keep South Africa moving are dying young, often from preventable diseases. Health experts say this is more than just a health issue. They say it's a national economic safety concern. It is against this background that the South African Heart Association hosted the Check My Beat Heart Health Tracks at Soweto's Bara taxi rank, offering free on-site health screenings for taxi drivers. Dr. David Janklow, clinical cardiologist at Netcare Linksfield and member of the SA Heart Media Funder and Digital Innovation Committee, says heart disease is the biggest killer in the world.
Every day in South Africa, approximately 230 people pass away or die from either a heart attack or a stroke. And 80% of heart disease is preventable. So prevention is better than cure. And that's how our campaign was born. So we are screening taxi drivers and commuters using novel technologies, and we're linking their heart screening vitals with an artificial intelligence music generator, which is producing a genre of song called Maskandi, which is played in all the taxis. And each of these songs is a personal message, a personal heart health message, which we will give to each driver and they can play in their taxis.
Professor Ruchika Mill, cardiologist and SA Heart Journal editor, says taxi drivers often face conditions that put their own health at risk, with long hours, irregular meals, high stress and limited access to health care, making many vulnerable to heart disease. She says healthy taxi drivers, in terms of both physical and mental health, are likely to be better taxi drivers.
Improving heart health among taxi drivers through identification of subclinical diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol will foster long-term heart health. By identification of these diseases early, we can prevent complications arising from these diseases, thus enabling healthy taxi drivers, safer public transport system, and a sustainable transport system.
Taxi operator Sboniso Mapisa says they are grateful for the health screenings.
This activation has helped us a lot because we don't have time to exercise. We start working in the morning and knock off late at night. So we're pleading that you guys come back again. It must not end today. We are very grateful that you guys came because we don't check the food that we eat from taxi ranks, you know. But today they told us to stick to fruits and avoid sugar and salty foods because that's what makes us sick.
Commuters also came out in their numbers to check their health.
I'm here to check if my body is okay.
I was passing by and then I see people. I ask what they are doing here. They say they are checking our bodies. So I'm concerned to check my body because next year I will be making 60. So the life of living is changing in my body. So that is why I'm taking it. I'm in this queue.
I'm here in this queue to check if my heart is okay because I suffer from short breath. That's why I'm waiting in this queue patiently.
The campaign builds on a 2024 pilot which screened an unprecedented number of taxi drivers and uncovered an alarming statistics. 75% were overweight and only 1 in 4 had a healthy BMI. For most, it was the first heart assessment of their lives. The SA Heart Association says the findings reveal an urgent national gap and that communities that carry South Africa are failing through the cracks of health care. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Ntlandla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
Ukatili wa kijinsia unaharibu maisha na kutenga jamii. Hutokea nyumbani, shuleni, kazini na mara nyingi kwa ukimya. Lakini hauwezi kuendelea. Ukiona, ongea. Ikiwa unaumia, funguka kwa sababu kutofanya lolote sio chaguo. Sikiliza vituo vyote 19 vya redio kuanzia Jumatano ya tarehe 23 Julai kwenye mijadala, ushauri, tamthilia, maonyesho ya elimu na mahojiano na wataalamu, manusura, watunga sheria na nchi nzima iliyoathirika na ukatili wa kijinsia kwenye vituo vyako pendwa vya redio. Piga simu 0800 428 428 ili kuripoti unyanyasaji au kupata msaada. GBV ikomeshwe na wewe. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na shirika la SABC.
A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's largest political party, the African National Congress, the ANC, and its allied organizations have reaffirmed their commitment to unity. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa, the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU leader Zingiswa Losi, and the South African Communist Party, the SACP, headed by Solima Paela, appeared together at COSATU's 8th Central Committee meeting, which is currently underway east of Johannesburg. The midterm gathering reviews progress on resolutions from the Federation's last Congress, whilst also addressing ongoing tensions within the alliance. Ntebo Mogobo has more.
The tripartite alliance seems on the brink of collapse. Although still part of the pact, the SACP has vowed to go it alone in the next elections. At the heart of the decision is what it calls the ANC's failure over decades to reconfigure the alliance. While there is no turning back for the SACP, alliance leaders are working flat out to avoid a possible split in the pact. COSATU President Zingiswa Losi says the two alliance partners must sort out their differences and stop dividing the federation.
Comrades, we love the ANC of Oliver Tambo and Nelson Mandela. We love the SACP of Joe Slovo and Chris. We need our alliance partners to resolve their challenges and to engage the federation on these. We need both the ANC and the SACP to appreciate the unity of the federation. And we're making this appeal to our alliance political partners. The ANC and the SACP do not divide workers. Do not divide COSATU.
Although the ANC stands accused of refusing to reconfigure the alliance, its president Cyril Ramaphosa cannot imagine the collapse of the pact.
The ANC remains committed to the strategic alliance that we have. The ANC remains committed to the objectives of the National Democratic Revolution. And in the end, we are irrevocably committed to strengthening the alliance. Now, as president of the ANC, I've always been clear that breaking this alliance or weakening this alliance is not in the best interest of all of us. And we need to deal with the challenges that we have had, yes, reconfiguration, how people and the alliance partners are respected.
After delivering his message to the COSATU Central Committee, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa quickly left out for another engagement, and it was the turn for the Communist Party to respond. SACP General Secretary Solima Paila bemoaned the state of the alliance.
The last Alliance Summit was in 2015, 10 years ago. So, Comrade Makura asked the President, where does he take the mandate from if he can't take the mandate from his allies? If we can't meet for 10 years? We have raised these questions in the bilaterals. They are meaningless. They mean nothing. That is why the SACP has now said, if you can't meet properly with your allies, where do you take the mandate? But we must say we appreciate the commitment from the President to the alliance. We equally appreciate the commitment by the ANC-NEC to the concept of dual membership.
The COSATU gathering will end later today, with the hope that the ANC and the SACP will find each other in their next bilateral meeting. I am Tebo Mokobe in Johannesburg.
South Africa's Minister of Police, Professor Firoz Kachalia, says he has resolved to formulate a stabilization plan to combat the ongoing scourge of crime in Cape Town. He was responding to statements from members of the National Assembly. Some of the ministers who had to account for their executive work during the plenary was the Minister of Electricity and Energy, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, and the Minister of Transport, Barbara Creasy. Abongwe Kobogana reports.
Professor Chakalia was questioned about the mass shootings and killings that have ravaged some of the townships in Cape Town recently.
As I indicated publicly, I think that while the police have responded with increased operations and deployment, that the situation is not yet under control. I am taking steps to working with the South African Police Service to strengthen the plan, what I've called a stabilization plan. And I've also indicated to them that we need a long-term, intelligence-driven plan to combat what I've indicated to be a problem of organized crime.
In another development, the Minister of Electricity and Energy, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, has revealed that he is waiting for a report from NESA before deciding to take a further action on the 54 billion rand error made by the energy regulator in calculating the increase on electricity tariffs by ESCOM for 2025 and 2026 financial year.
NERSA was able to provide a full account of what led to the error, and also indicated to the portfolio committee that the necessary consequence management is being effected, and I'll also wait for the report and determine if there's additional steps to be taken by the minister in as far as it involves either members of the board or the executive. So I really want to give the assurance to the House.
Ramokgopa has claimed that he is on record in lamenting the increase of the electricity in the country.
And I'm on record having admitted that the cost of electricity is prohibitively high. It undermines the competitiveness of the economy, and it erodes the disposable income of households. I'll come back to the portfolio committee and also to the country to announce the measures that we are going to take to address the runaway cost of electricity. Thank you very much, House Chair.
That was South Africa's Transport Minister, Barbara Creasy, ending that report by Abongwe Kobokana.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge.
Eight o'clock Central Africa time. A very good morning to you, and this is the third and final hour of the program, Rise and Shine, as we broadcast from our studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, on the internet at www.channelafrica.ca.co.za. Ah, dear. Anyway, it is spring in the air. I'm Peter Ndoro.
And my name is Asanda, Beda. Well, it's Friday Eve, so can we just hold on to that positivity? And thank you for staying with us as Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa. In this hour, we look at South Africa's Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu, who's facing a few accusations. This all under the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, looking to see what happened in terms of the country's police services. We'll be unpacking what's going on there, as today is day 2 of the sittings. We'll be speaking to an attorney and legal analyst to give us more detail. That story and more coming up. First, let's say good morning to Jolani Tulongwepe. It's 8:01. She's got our news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Police in Togo have arrested the former Defence Minister Marguerite Gnade. Reports say she's accused of plotting against the state. The former minister is due to appear in court in the coming days. Gnade is the sister-in-law of President Faure Gnassingbe. She was married to his late brother and is the first woman to be a defence minister. As Malawians await the results of Tuesday's election, the Malawi Electoral Commission chairperson, Justice Annabel Mdalimanja, has called on all political candidates, their supporters and the public to remain calm and patient during the vote counting process. Speaking at the election tally centre in Lilongwe, Mdalimanja emphasised the importance of respecting the official procedures.
As the results continue to be compiled and verified, the Commission is calling upon all contestants, their supporters, and indeed the general public to remain patient and calm. The period of results processing is often highly sensitive, and the conduct of candidates plays a crucial role in maintaining peace and confidence in the process. Candidates are therefore being urged to respect the procedures, avoid making premature claims of victory, and to wait for the official announcement of results from the Commission.
South Africa's Umkhonto weSizwe party will continue today with its bid to have 3 interrelated decisions taken by South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa declared unlawful. In response to allegations made by Lieutenant General Ndandla Mkhwanazi, Ramaphosa placed Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on special leave, appointed Professor Firoz Kachalia to act in his position, and established the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The MK party has taken its case to the Gauteng High Court after its application for exclusive jurisdiction and direct access to the Constitutional Court failed in July. MKP National Spokesperson Nhlamulo Ndlela.
This is patently unlawful and irrational for Ramaphosa and his administration to appoint a sitting judge to head a commission tasked with investigating allegations that directly implicate members of the judiciary in corruption, gangsterism, and criminal syndicates. Equally unlawful is the purported appointment of this, in inverted commas, quite honestly, so-called acting minister. An unconstitutional usurpation of the executive authority compounded with Ramaphosa's arbitrary sidelining of Minister Senzo Mchunu under the guise of leave of absence.
The South African government says the recent developments in the conflict between Israel and Hamas are further evidence of genocide directed at Palestinians. Israel has denied this, but its forces have continued their ground operations to capture Gaza's main urban centre. International Relations Deputy Minister Alvin Boertes says the current developments undermine the measures of the International Court of Justice in the case that South Africa brought against Israel. He was speaking during a question and answer session in Parliament yesterday.
This is not fresh allegations of genocide taking place. I think what we are seeing here is the expansion of a genocide that are being committed against the vulnerable people of Palestine by the state of Israel. We do regard, Chair, unequivocally that the conduct of the state of Israel is in breach of international law.
And finally, Israeli forces have meanwhile pushed into a densely populated area of Gaza City. This as they continue their ground operations to capture Gaza's main urban center. There are thick clouds of smoke as Israeli forces fire artillery shells and smoke bombs. Thousands of people have fled. However, others say they cannot leave. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African perspective.
In our sports headline, Nigeria seeks to make history as the first African country to host the Commonwealth Games. 3 Boks players have been omitted from Rassie Erasmus' Springbok squad to take on Los Pumas. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
South Africa's police minister, Senzo Mchunu, is accused of being influenced by powerful criminal syndicates to shut down the country's most successful task team in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Explosive testimony on day 1 of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry has exposed how the minister, because of close ties with criminal syndicates, attempted to shut down a political killings task team that would put them behind bars. Timakadzo Leshoro filed this report.
And off we go.
Someone thought that the political killings task team was the one that was responsible for the investigations in Gauteng towards these criminal syndicates that we had alluded to, we spoke about earlier, which involved in the participation of senior police officers in the South African Police Service, especially at the head office, as well as the senior politicians and their associate. So somebody believed that it is the political killings task team that was busy with the Gauteng investigation. Whoever advised a minister advised him to close the team because they thought it is the team that is doing that investigation.
The much-awaited Madlanga Commission of Inquiry finally got underway on Wednesday with the first witness, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, making explosive revelations. He told the inquiry the police minister's decision to disband the political killings task team was not independent but shaped by criminal networks under investigation. He says the task team's work had rattled organized crime syndicates in Gauteng who are linked to Police Minister Senzo Mchunu and police generals.
Communication within the syndicates was making a reference to the team. The associates are associates of the minister, and the very same associate does show communication that seems to suggest that the minister is fully involved in the decision that this syndicate is taking. Evidence is there on the record that will support my conclusion on this, that proves the linkages between the syndicates and the minister himself.
Mkhwanazi revealed he made repeated attempts to raise concerns with the minister through the National Commissioner, his Chief of Staff, and even Parliament.
Part of my request to the National Commissioner was that if he's not able to get an audience with the minister to talk about this, the least he must do is to approach the head of state, the president. I personally reached out to the chairperson of the portfolio committee as an oversight body to the police work, because I realize it looks like every door I'm knocking, nothing is happening. National Commissioner, please speak to the minister, it's not happening. National Commissioner, check with the president, I'm not getting a feedback. And the next body that I must engage is an oversight body, which is Parliament. I then contacted the chairperson of the portfolio committee Honorable Cameron, myself. It is that portfolio committee where I was able to then express my feelings about this decision in the presence of both the National Commissioner and the Minister. But even that effort failed.
He says Mkhunu told MPs in a parliamentary hearing that the country's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, was aware of this decision. Mkhwanazi accused Minister Mkhunu of undermining the interministerial committee, which had originally authorized a task team, saying one minister could not dismantle a collective mandate.
So for a minister to reach this conclusion, worse because the minister has not received a formal briefing on the work that this team is doing. So to me, it was a wrong conclusion that the minister has reached, which is why it became a matter of concern.
He also rejected the minister's claim that the task team added no value.
For the minister to isolate the political killing task team alone raises question. And for the conclusion that the minister says that the team does not add any value. The value of the police is to prevent crime, to investigate crime, and bring the perpetrators thereof to justice. And this team has demonstrated that. So I did not understand the value the minister was referring to.
The inquiry also heard about threats to investigators and prosecutors working on syndicate-linked cases. Letters from senior prosecutors warned that officers' lives were in danger. Among the cases was the bail release of former police officer Michael Puletau, arrested with high-powered rifles. Mkhwanazi says decisions like this undermined public trust in the justice system. The task team had investigated over 120 cases, including the killings of politicians and traditional leaders in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. But once the letter of disbandment was issued, all its docket were controversially redirected to national headquarters instead of back to the police stations where they belonged, under the direction of now suspended Deputy National Commissioner General Shadrack Sibia. The Matlanga Commission will hear more evidence from other members of the police service in the coming weeks, with the fate of the political killings task team at the center. The hearings could expose whether the leadership of the South African Police Service were dismantling organized crime or protecting it. For Channel Africa News, I'm Dimakato Leshoro in Pretoria.
Right, so let's get analysis now. As promised, we speak to attorney and legal analyst Mudidima Manya. Mudidima, thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners. I'm very well.
Thank you for making time for us. Let's start here. What makes this Matlanga Commission so significant for South Africa's justice system?
Look, it's significant not only for the justice system, and I'm not sure whether that would be the bigger issue, but I think it sounds like it's got very serious political and constitutional implications. And the reason why I say that is because there seems to be a suggestion, at least on the evidence that has been presented, that the president may have to himself appear before the commission. Several ministers may have to appear before the commission to explain, particularly the issue of the interministerial task team, and what seems to have been said by the minister, Mr. Mkhunu, at the portfolio committee, that the president was aware of the decision to disband.
Would you characterize this or refer to this as South Africa's biggest corruption inquiry?
Not necessarily, probably another version, because I think we have had the state capture, we have had the commission that dealt with SARS, and we have had previous commissions, including the Moerane Commission. Now, corruption has got wider tentacles, and you can't say this is big or small. Corruption is corruption, and it's got actually exactly the same effect, regardless of the scope.
The hearing started yesterday, as we have been saying, with KwaZulu-Natal Province's Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi as first witness. Testimony exposed how the Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, tried to shut down a political killings task team What are the chances that this task team would be reopened, and what would be important to have in place to ensure its success?
Look, I think what Mkwanazi detailed and quite interesting is that there was a deliberate decision to have this task team. And not only was the decision deliberate, but seems to have been informed through some bit of an elaborate process to arrive at a conclusion of the most appropriate mechanism. And I think that seems to be the center of his complaint, that, the interministerial committee itself did an evaluation, which means they informed themselves that, look, this thing is not working. And remember, the political killings were becoming a hotbed. But the people in the interministerial committee themselves are politicians, so they were also vulnerable. So I think there was some serious concern. Now, the police themselves seem to have conceptualized a mechanism which, as we understand from Konazi's evidence now, has been approved or at least endorsed by the political leadership. Now, that on its own says this was a priority, at least at cabinet level.
On the question of who the minister consulted before deciding to dissolve this task team, how could he possibly respond to why he didn't consult KZN or KwaZulu-Natal Commissioner, nor Police Commissioner Fani Masemola?
Well, I think that would be very interesting, but I think this brings into sharp focus an interpretation of the Constitution and the law insofar as the powers and functions of the minister are concerned. Now, the law says the minister, the Constitution and the law and the Act says the minister is responsible for the policy functions, which means to come up with budgets, to come up with the policy, the crime prevention policy, which of course must be informed by the operatives. But I think the disturbing factor here, which I am very curious to hear how he's going to respond to it, is what happens when there's an interministerial committee? Because, by the way, the Constitution says it is the president who exercises the executive authority with other members of the executive or the national executive. Now, it appears that the president has put together this committee of various members of the executive to oversee this function in an integrated way and coordinate. Logically, you cannot understand why one of them would take a decision. Let's say the Minister of Justice would have taken a decision that, look, I no longer want the prosecution team to advise and guide the police task team. That would create a problem both at a policy and constitutional level, because it would mean this person is undermining that decision. But the law is also very clear that you cannot exercise a power you do not have in law. Now, that means to the extent that a minister would take a decision of this nature and say, I no longer want this task team, if the police commissioner says it is relevant and important for my operations, that would be a bit unconstitutional and unlawful. So I think it's important to hear the side of the minister, but whatever explanation he gives, if it is true that he single-handedly took this decision, I think it's going to be difficult for him to explain it.
So whose advice do you think he would take to disband the task team? Who's this shadowy force, and do you believe he will tell the truth and answer that question?
I think from what I hear from Kwanazi is that there is in fact information. And my understanding is that it's not like the police went out to go and investigate whether the minister was friends with criminals or not. In the course of their investigation, they seem to have stumbled into an information from these syndicates or members of these syndicates, which then linked them to the minister. Now, obviously, I think this is where every one of us make a mistake. People think when you talk on a data call, everything that goes with that data call disappears. And it appears that there was an exchange of messages. And Mkwanazi has said very confidently and boldly that we have evidence and this data will be provided to the commission. Now, you see, it's going to be difficult for somebody to come and try and give us a context to what has been written. In law, if you have written something, if, for instance, there's a WhatsApp message that says 1, 2, 3, for you to try and explain how it came about is going to be relevant. We're going to look at the message and what it says and interpret it. So the minister may, if what is being said is anything to go by, I think he may find it very difficult, if not impossible, to extricate himself from this one.
And those claims of the police minister having close ties with criminal syndicates, what scale of damage, excuse me, what scale of damage does such a claim have on the credibility of policing in the country and justice in the country? Can its reputation be saved, the SAPS? We have a new South Africa current Minister of Police, Professor Firoz Kachalia.
Look, I think we must be very careful about who gets affected. You know, firstly, it is the public themselves who get affected when we have people in public office and exercising public power engage just even unethical behavior, never mind a hardcore corruption. But secondly, you must understand that this commission is a product of men in blue who came up and say, we stand for what the constitution say we must do. Now, yes, it may on the face of it also appear to have damaged the credibility and the image of the police, but this very exercise itself, arising from the very same police officers, seem to give credence and credibility to the men in blue. But remember, the police have arrested and they've made quite significant progress on this issue of political killings. So it would be very wrong and dangerous to simply say, because there are these incidents, which don't necessarily arise from the police. It seems like the cartels, criminal cartels generally, have some way of getting politicians. And we have seen that with the SARS Commission. We have seen that with the State Capture Commission. Central to this is always the politicians are very much involved. Of course, there are functionaries, officials within the state who are also implicated and involved, I suppose.
The commission is chaired by retired Constitutional Court Justice Mbuyiseni Madlanga. From what we know of his judicial career, what kind of leadership does he bring to the hearings and the kind of style we can expect him to lead with?
Well, you know, I think if you listen to his political, his opening address when the commission started, you can understand that is Justice Madlanga for you. He is not neutral on our constitutional imperatives. He's not neutral on what the Constitution expects all of us to do. And he has set the tone very clearly, you know, as you can read many of Justice Madlanga's judgments. He's a constitutionalist. He's a fearless person. He's a measured person. He's a good leader. You can see his demeanor. You can see his smile. But make no mistake about it. You expect him to interrogate issues, and he does generally interrogate issues.
So KZN Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is back before the commission today. What do you think we can expect from him this time?
Look, remember, I think the bulk of yesterday was, you know, dedicated to setting up the framework and laying the groundwork with quite serious information already coming. And I think he keeps on saying, I have the evidence to support these allegations. But you must also understand that Mkhwanazi seems to also be laying the foundation for other functionaries to come and put the meat to the bone. So I think in today and tomorrow, we're likely to hear some bit of explosions. I think what we must also appreciate is that it appears that some of the information will definitely be heard behind closed doors. So we're not necessarily going to have the benefit of every single detail. But it's clear that he seems to me to be well prepared. He seems to be knowing what he's talking about. And I think we should expect some serious punches today and tomorrow.
Security and access control, on that point, that some hearings will be closed. it's closely monitored at the hearings. And these strict security measures obviously mean that they need protection, those who are expected to testify. Should there be more done for their protection?
Yes, I think we must distinguish between two things. One is the security around who is going to testify, which has got nothing to do with your physical presence at the commission, because you could be harmed at your home or your family could be harmed. But I think the access control itself at the commission is to mitigate against the possible risk of even the commissioners themselves being attacked or the evidence leaders, because that's possible as well. So I think the issue of the in-camera hearings has also more to do with mitigating the risk of exposing ongoing investigations which may be jeopardized if the information is flopped out in the public. As you know, our lovely people in the media will not spare a moment to report on anything, even if you say, don't talk about this, it's sensitive. They will actually have a headline that says sensitive information. So I think that's really the whole purpose of the in-camera hearings. And it's not unusual because, for instance, you go to a family court, there are in-camera hearings, so that the sensitivity of some of the things which may jeopardize the process is not compromised.
Well, Didima, we thank you again so much for your valuable insights this morning.
Thank you very much.
That's attorney and legal analyst Mudidima Manya, just talking about that Madlanga Commission. Day 2 it is today, and we'll be keeping a close eye on that and giving you the latest in developments.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
Meanwhile, opposition political party, the Umkhonto weSizwe Party in South Africa, criticizes as a political motivated action the party's Gauteng spokesperson, Abel Tau, believing that the chairperson of the Commission of Inquiry into the country's police, Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, is throwing himself and the judiciary into the political arena and playing politics. Refilwe Mekwa filed this report.
The inquiry intends to get to the bottom of explosive allegations that KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi made in July about the infiltration of the criminal justice system by criminal syndicates. In the next 2 days, the MK party is expected to hear the outcome of its North Gauteng High Court application to have the establishment of the commission declared unlawful. Tau further questioned the day that was chosen for the commission to start.
The fact that he is starting this commission tells us that it is rushed so that when we go to court to challenge this very commission that is sitting here today, that they would have started. Now, that decision on its own is very unfortunate because we are spending money. There was a valid reason now to wait 2 more days and start on a Monday. We feel that very strongly that this commission should not be sitting. We believe that South Africa should not be paying 147 million to ensure that President can decide whether or not to charge Minister Mkhunu.
According to Tau, there won't be any recourse at the end of the commission.
I can tell you now that we are not going to get anything. There has never been a time where recommendations from commissions such as these ones have ever been followed up. I can also tell you that the timelines that were set are not going to be met because this is South Africa. The president is hoping to keep us busy long enough that we forget. We believe that General Mkhwanazi has alluded to the fact that there is prima facie evidence. People must be charged and people must go to court and people must defend themselves there. No, the commission cannot be much better when you are having a compromised judiciary with nothing to lose. I mean, in a situation such as this one, at least in a court where the judgment is binding, you can take that judgment to a review, you can take it to the next level, and obviously there is recourse. With a commission such as this one, honestly, there isn't much recourse except that we will be advised what to do.
Meanwhile, civil society movement, Not in My Name's General Secretary Temba Masango, believes the commission is an important step in discovering the truth.
We feel that this is an important step with regards to the democracy in our country, where a whistleblower like the General Mkhwanazi will be able to come and tell his truth and be able to take South Africa into confidence with what he knows with regards to the rampant corruption and the evil that is facing our country at the moment. And I think it's very important that the public is part of it and that the public does know what is happening. And hopefully it will bring forth the necessary results. Yes, there's been a lot of commissions that have happened in the country where after the fact not much is being done in terms of them seeing justice and people actually seeing jail time. However, we need to support the process so that as the public we can know exactly.
One of the Tshwane residents, Ngwako Motshega, says there's no need for such a commission.
There's no need for this commission. There's no need for this commission. This commission is just a waste of the public's time and a waste of public finance. There's no importance of this commission because we are having experience of these commissions from the Truth and Reconciliation, the Zondo, and the Goldfield until this one. We are exactly not comfortable about this. I think the issue was supposed to go straight to the court and then the National Prosecuting Authority investigate the matter until the verdict of the issue. Because this thing is not a magistrate court. It's a political gathering here where they try to shield one another.
All eyes will now be on the North Gauteng High Court on the next 2 days to declare whether the commission is unlawful or not. I'm Refile Mekwa in Pretoria.
Let's get news headlines now. Here's Jolani Tulongwepe. It's 8:30 Central African Time.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines. Police in Togo have arrested the former Defence Minister, Marguerite Kanade. South Africa's National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola is ready to testify before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry should he be summoned. That's according to SAP's national spokesperson, Athlenda Mate. And finally, foreign affairs ministers from several countries, including South Africa, have voiced concern over the safety of the global summit flotilla. I will have details on these and other stories at 9 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
It's time now to find out what's been happening in the world of sport, and guiding us through that is Fikile Lingwati. Good morning.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Start off with football news. The Rwanda Investigation Bureau, RIB, and Rwanda National Police have launched an investigation on former Secretary General of Rwanda Football Federation, FERWAFA, Adolphe Kalisa, and national team kit manager Eric Tuisenge, who are suspected of embezzlement and corruption and forgery. RIB confirmed that the two were arrested and detained at the Remera and Kichukiro RIB stations respectively. While investigations continue, the case file of Kalisa has already been forwarded to the National Public Prosecution Authority. Reports about Kalisa's arrest first circulated a week ago, linking him with embezzlement of FERWAFA funds. Kalisa served as FERWAFA Secretary General since June 2023 until the Executive Committee led by former President Alfonso Munyatwali saw off their term in July. Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has shown faith in the players that retained the Freedom Cup in New Zealand. He's only made injuries and forced changes to his 33-man squad for the two remaining Rugby Championship matches against Argentina. Lock Luod Diaga, loose forward Jean-Luc Dubrier, and fullback Aphelele Fassi were ruled out due to injury ahead of the crucial test against the Pumas in Durban and London in England. The first test against the Pumas is on the 27th of this month. The Boks played themselves right back into contention with a resounding win over the All Blacks in Wellington last weekend. Success against Argentina will be crucial for a successful title defense, and Erasmus says the players prove that they are the best available to take on the Pumas. On to athletics. Athletes and road running enthusiasts have been assured that the annual Soweto Marathon will take place this year. The 30th edition of the event will now be on the 29th of November, starting from Nasrec, crisscrossing the Soweto Township and finishing at the FNB Stadium. The annual event, popularly known as the People's Race, has experienced a number of challenges in recent times. The race director, Denny Bloomberg, says moving the event to the 29th of November was due to logistical issues.
So we were all systems go for the 30th, and there is one last shift that I need to mention to everyone. That date was brought to our attention that it clashes with National Prayer Day, which happens at the Soccer City precinct. So our event cannot coexist on the same day for obvious reasons on the 30th. So we've decided to shift it to Saturday, the 29th of November.
And finally, with cricket news, Pakistan have booked a blockbuster Asia Cup rematch with India after a 41-run win over the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. Fakhar Zaman top scored with a brisk 50, lifting Pakistan to 146 for 9 before UAE were bowled out for 105 in 17.4 overs. The match delayed by a pre-game handshake row with India saw Shaheen Afridi named player of the match for his all-round impact. With the win, Pakistan advanced to the Super 4 stage where they'll face their arch-rivals once again on Sunday. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lengwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Let's check in with the world of business now. Here's Nosipo Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. In your business news this hour, analysts expect the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee of South Africa, which is the MPC, to keep interest rates unchanged when it announces its decision this afternoon. Despite reduced inflation expectations, the bank is expected to hold its rate-cutting cycle this time around. The final cut is only expected at its last meeting in November. In July, the MPC decided to cut rates by 25 basis points, taking the repo rate to 7% and the prime lending rate to 10.5%. Now, today's interest rates decision will be announced after Statistics South Africa's latest data showing that inflation eased from 3.5% in July to 3.3% in August 2025. Chief Economist at Efficient Group, Tawiru.
And everything points to a further reduction in interest rates. However, probably not yet. I think that the Reserve Bank certainly does have room to cut rates a little bit further, but we also know that Sechekanyago is quite a hawk, and he wants to manage inflation expectations down to 3%. Yes, I do believe there's some room for a rate cut, but I think knowing the governor of the Reserve Bank, he's going to wait another 2 months before he actually cuts rates again.
Judgment has been reserved in the South African Constitutional Court case brought by communities along the World Coast against oil companies, Shell and Impact South Africa. The Apex Court was set to hear arguments over 2 days, but proceedings concluded in Johannesburg yesterday. Environmental organizations, along with the affected communities, argue that an order of the Supreme Court of Appeal allowing Shell to renew its exploration right was incorrect and should not stand. Head of Programs at Natural Justice, Lucien Laimecha, unpacks what each outcome could mean.
If Shell is allowed to move ahead with its operations and undertake seismic surveys, of course that will have an impact on the community who live along the Wild Coast and have an impact on the marine life. Similarly, though, if it happens the other way, then we would hope that the entire process is set aside, which is what we had requested at the High Court and which was given, as our advocate stated very clearly.
Amazon has violated consumer protection law by gathering Prime subscribers' billing information before disclosing services terms. The ruling by the court in the case accusing Amazon of deceptive practices to generate Prime subscriptions puts the company at a disadvantage at trial. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission is poised to argue that the online retailer signed up tens of millions of customers for Prime without their consent. Meta Platforms have launched its first consumer-ready smart glasses with a built-in display. The launch seeks to extend the momentum of its Ray-Ban line, one of the early consumer hits of the artificial intelligence era. CEO Mark Zuckerberg showed off the Meta Ray-Ban display and a new wristband controller. Your financial indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 495. In Botswana is 13 pula 18. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 45. And in Zambia, it's 24 kwacha 51. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,662 and platinum at $1,375 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $67.83 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Soma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Call us on +27 63 406 9126.
I can see my whole world changing.
And contribute to the conversation.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hifadhi kubwa ya dhahabu, madini adimu na madini ya msingi yameweza kugunduliwa katika wilaya ya Luamo na eneo pana la Karamoja. Hii taarifa ikoje?
Ni kweli ni kwamba uchunguzi ulifanywa kwa muda wa miaka 5 na ugunduzi ni kwamba umeweza kupelekea nchi kupata ufanisi mkubwa hasa katika utajiri wa madini hapa nchini Uganda.
Tumekuwa tuna madini katika bara la Afrika, lakini yamekuwa madini haya hayatunufaishi au kutusaidia kwa namna moja ama nyingine, na tumeendelea kuwa maskini. Unadhani nini kifanyike?
Kubwa katika yote ni kwamba serikali inatakiwa kutoa mkakati mzuri utakaoweza kuwanufaisha kwanza raia wake.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa is marking a National Wills Week, which has been running from the 15th to the 19th of September. National Wills Week is an initiative organised by the Law Society of South Africa aimed at promoting the importance of having a valid will. During this week, legal practitioners across the country provide free legal advice and assist individuals in drafting basic wills. Tutong Gobeni has more.
As South Africa marks National Wills Week this week, the aim is to promote the importance of having a valid will. Many people consider estate planning and having a will something exclusively for the wealthy or elderly. Unfortunately, life is unpredictable, and according to experts, everyone should have a will to make their final wishes clear in the event of their passing. Legal specialist at PSG Wealth, Mariska Radilengey, says it's important to constantly consult with your financial advisor.
Having a financial advisor is just as important as having a medical doctor. Think of them as your financial doctor. Your MD takes care of your physical health. During a consultation, they will examine you. They will then diagnose your condition. And then they will prescribe a course of action with which to address the symptoms of your ailment. Similarly, when you visit a financial advisor, they will first analyze your current financial situation, and then together with you, they will identify the needs and gaps in reaching your financial goal. And based on that, they will recommend a plan of action with which to address your specific needs and which puts you in a position to reach your financial goals.
Legislation in South Africa allows for individuals to draft a will from the ages. Legislation in South Africa allows for individuals to draft a will from the age of 16. Even if they don't own a car or property, individuals may have other assets that must be administered. Something like the balance on the bank account or current account is considered as an asset and will therefore be part of an estate. If an individual passes away intestate without a will, the estate will be distributed according to South Africa's interstate succession laws and not according to individuals' wishes. Redelan Geis says not having a will can result in costly and complicated legal processes for loved ones and those who remain behind.
No one wants to face their mortality, which is why most of us avoid going to the doctor, and certainly why we avoid drafting an estate plan. However, an estate plan is not just for the elderly or the wealthy. There are certain unavoidable costs of dying that all of us will face when we pass away, specifically executors' fees, estate duty, capital gains tax. And these are all direct expenses to your estate, which means that it will have to be settled in cash. If you don't have enough liquidity in your estate, this will create a cash shortfall in your estate, and your executor will look to your heirs to settle that shortfall. Fortunately, these costs can be calculated, and that means you can plan for it. So don't wait until it is too late. Seek out your financial advisor now so that they can assist you with doing those calculations and put a plan in place to make sure that you are covered.
She has encouraged South Africans to ensure that they have regular reviews with their financial advisors to ensure that their estate plan is still in order.
Any medical doctor will tell you prevention is better than cure. The same applies to your finances. Regular checkups or regular reviews of your financial plan is imperative for your financial health. Big life changes, like buying a property or getting divorced, will always prompt you to seek out your financial advisor, but don't only wait for those big life changes. There are also external changes that could affect your estate plan. The annual reviews of tax laws, regulatory updates like the recent changes to the Trust Property Control Act can all impact on your estate plan and your long-term financial goals. Aim to set a meeting with your financial advisor at least once a year to make sure that you are still on track to reach your personal goals.
For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongobeni in Johannesburg.
Today, we are witnessing how the promise of never again is broken, said Navi Pillay, chair of the UN International Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory, including East Jerusalem and Israel. The Commission's report finds Israel committed genocide in Gaza, carrying out 4 of the 5 acts defined under the 1948 Genocide Convention, a central point in South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice. Sherwin Bryce-Peace reports the Commission also found Israel ignored the ICG's Provisional Measures Order from January 2024.
The Commission concluded that Israeli authorities committed 4 acts of genocide in Gaza, including causing serious bodily harm, deliberately inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about the destruction of Palestinians in whole or in part, and imposing measures intended to prevent births. The report further finds that explicit statements by Israeli, civilian and military authorities and the pattern of conduct of that state's security forces indicated that genocidal acts were committed with intent to destroy Palestinians in the Gaza Strip as a group.
Today we witness in real time how the promise of never again is broken and tested in the eyes of the world.
The Commission Chair Navi Pillay says responsibility lies with Israeli authorities at the highest echelons, who've orchestrated a genocidal campaign for almost 2 years, and that Israel had failed to prevent or punish these acts.
The ongoing genocide in Gaza is a moral outrage and a legal emergency. Member states must act now. There is no need to wait for the International Court of Justice to declare it a genocide. All states are obligated to use whatever means within its power to prevent the commission of genocide. And so we urge member states to ensure accountability for any crimes that have been committed and prevent further crimes from being committed, not just in Gaza, but the entire occupied Palestinian territory.
According to the report, its findings are based on all the Commission's prior investigations as well as factual and legal findings in relation to the attacks in Gaza, carried out by Israeli forces, and the conduct and statements of Israeli authorities from October 7, 2023 until the 31st of July this year. Chris Sidoti is a member of the Commission.
These reports should be taken seriously, but honestly, the Israeli responses are becoming so boring. You know, they say the same thing every time. They're producing the responses by ChatGPT these days, and they spend so much money in the Foreign Ministry on propaganda, you'd think that they would actually come up with something original. I would want them to engage with the evidence, but they never engage with the evidence. They put the report into ChatGPT, and then they put out the standard response. So no one takes it seriously.
The Commission also concluded that Israeli President Isaac Herzog, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and then Defense Minister Yoav Gallant had incited the commission of genocide, and that Israeli authorities failed to take action against them to punish this incitement. But Israel has, as expected, rejected the findings through Israeli ambassador to the UN in Geneva, Daniel Meron.
Israel categorically rejects the libelous rant published today by this Commission of Inquiry. It spreads the malicious genocide narrative. The report diverges from the mandate of the Commission, yet again stressing their biased analysis. I pose to you to read carefully this 72-page report and try and find the word Hamas. Hamas does not exist. It is some alien that attacked Israel on the 7th of October. These claims in the report rely on misleading statistics, unfounded apocalyptic projections based on weak data, on the conflation of credible and unverified evidence.
The Commission urged the government of Israel to comply immediately with its international legal obligations, including to end the genocide in the Gaza Strip and fully implement the provisional measures ordered by the International Court of Justice, as Navi Pillay explained.
I wish they'll tell us where we went wrong on these facts, or just cooperate with us if they had done any investigations. It is our hope that this report will be read by the higher-ups, including the Secretary General at the United Nations. So the facts should influence high-level leaders at the United Nations also to call this what it is, the genocide.
The Commission was established by the UN Human Rights Council in May 2021 with a broad mandate to investigate all alleged violations of international humanitarian law and all alleged violations and abuses of international human rights law leading up to and since April 2021 in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, and in Israel. Their latest findings expected to bolster South Africa's case against Israel at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. I'm Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York.
All right, so Peter, this week we load a new episode on the Channel Africa Conversations podcast. And who did you speak to?
So what we did is we wanted to get a sense of the situation with Dr. Kizza Besigye, who's still incarcerated in Uganda. And so we spoke to his sister, Dr. Olive Kobusigye, and also a political analyst about the situation in the country. And she was very, very concerned. Let's listen a little bit to what she said.
I would say that we are looking at Uganda, but we are also looking at the region that has really borrowed or tried to borrow bad manners from the kind of repression and authoritarian practices that we are seeing in Uganda. As we speak, in Tanzania, we have the leader of opposition party, Tundu Lissu, who is also in prison and cannot be released on bail because he's facing treason-related charges. And we are seeing what happened to Kizza Besigye on the soils of Kenya did not just happen to Kizza Besigye. Few months before his abduction and rendition, there were 36 members of his party who were arbitrarily arrested in Kisumu city in Western Kenya, forced back to Uganda through the border, and charged with different, terrorism-related offenses. Most of them were beaten, tortured, and the offense is that they were in Kenya doing, training, which they were being accused were, to actually carry out terrorism-related offenses back in Uganda. I'm thinking, personally, I think over time, we have become our own enemies in that the people who are running the shows in these organs, the chairmanship or chairpersonship of these organs are the same people who are using each other, who are coordinating with each other, cooperating with each other to oppress their people. I said earlier that we are learning bad manners from each other. I say Tanzania elections are in October, Uganda elections are in January, and we are seeing similarities in how they handle the opposition, how they handle the media, how they handle even the least known, social media, influencer who would just want, to ridicule or criticize, a particular politician or action by the most powerful politicians. Then you see Kenya coming into elections in 2027. These are 3 East African countries running or going into an election season, but then the kind of repression, the kind of cross-border transnational repression we are seeing is very similar. You can almost tell that whatever happens in Kenya, whatever happened to Kizza Besigye definitely was, sanctioned by Uganda. Whatever happened in Kenya by Kizza Besigye, definitely the Kenyan state was involved, because there is no way you can take somebody of the stature of Kizza Besigye from a hotel in Nairobi.
All right, that was Roland Ibole, regional researcher for Uganda and Tanzania at Amnesty International, joining our colleague Peter Ndoro on this week's podcast, Channel Africa Conversations. You can catch us on YouTube as well as on the SABC Plus app.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
Yes. Coming up after Rise and Shine is On the Move. Benjamin is joining us in studio to tell us what to expect. Of course, he hosts the show with Balesa. How are you?
Hey, how are you guys doing? Hey, Peter, how are you?
Sir?
Good. Did he give you an update of what's happening with our...
I'm on the group, so I can see what's going on
There's
there.
a rival group
There's a rival group now.
Why are we being like this?
I have no idea what this is. We just watch.
All right, guys. Today we're going to be looking at education in Nairobi's informal settlements. Because sometimes when we think about education, we think of it as a privilege. But in fact, it's an opportunity to actually bridge yourself from that moment of maybe poverty into something much better in life. But when you have challenges for young people of overcrowded classrooms, under-resourced materials, limited academic support, how do you actually navigate that different environment of education? Because in itself, it feels like a trial. So we'll be looking at a study that was looking at patterns in low-income urban areas in Nairobi and find out how these young people are navigating those challenges, or if they are actually.
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult it is. And it's by the grace of God that you're born into the families that you're born into and where you're born into. Because if you're born in the middle of nowhere, a remote rural area, and there isn't a school nearby, the odds are stacked against you from day one, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's just... Yeah. But somehow some of these kids make it, eh? My dad will always tell us the story of You guys are very lucky. I used to walk 5 kilometers
with no shoes.
With no shoes.
You know that story as well.
I know that story as well.
And you guys come from different families, right? Okay, on that one, we'll be speaking to Dr. Beda Abuya, who is a research scientist, and we'll find out a little bit more about what's happening in that situation.
Great. That's coming up on the Move. Stay tuned to Channel Africa for that. And that's how we come to a close of the show on this Friday Eve, the 18th of September. Goodbye from me, Asanda Beda.
And from me, Peter Ndoro, have an awesome day, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow bright and early, 6 o'clock Central Africa time. Don't forget to tell your friends and family and anybody who cares about the continent. All you've got to do is tune in to www.channelafrica.co.za, and you can also catch us on our mobile app. Just go into your app store, look for SABC Plus, that's SABC Plus, and search for our program Rise and Shine. But coming up after the news, as you've heard, is On the Move. But right now, it's